Hello and welcome to Back to Base, the podcast. This is our third episode. So part one of our podcast was ourselves introducing ourselves. Part two was the strongest man on the planet. Now, thinking about the nature of how we run our business and everything we're doing, what do you guys think would be our logical third guest? Seeing as though we've got the strongest man on the planet as our first guest, who would our second dream guest be?
For sure, the strongest woman on the planet.
I would have actually chosen her as my first guest. I love Thor, but like girl power.
Agree.
Look,
That's my girl.
Let's not get into that one. And now we've got the opportunity to get our next guest, which just so happens to be
the most exciting guest, one of our favorite people in the world, one of the most influential woman.
I'm gonna pump up her tires.
Yeah, let's pump him.
I'd say Stefi Cohen is the most influential woman in the strength world today.
Definitely, agreed.
And I'm pretty excited to have her. And actually, it's a powerhouse couple here. We've got Stefi and Hayden.
Thank you so much for having us on your podcast.
Thank you.
It's an honor and a pleasure. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a professional powerlifter. I'm also a physiotherapist and the co-owner of Hybrid Performance Method that I started with Hayden about 4 years ago or so. I'm known for having a really good deadlift, working on having a really good squat and a really good bench, even though no one really cares about bench, except for basketball.
I don't care about that.
No, I agree. I see it too much.
So I think we just kind of missed out a couple of things there. You are a 25-time world record holder. Like, how could you not mention that, please?
Across 3 weight classes too.
Across 3 weight. What are the weight classes? Let's just talk about how tiny you are. Put that in. Paint that picture.
So I've been as small as 114 pounds. So that's what, 52 kilos. Yeah. And as big as 60. What is it?
60 kilos, because that's what you competed in at Pro Raw.
Right.
But you were bulking to get there.
Yeah.
You bulked for that one.
And then your main weight class is 56, right? 123.
And how tall are you?
In the 5 flat.
5 flat.
Are you? I thought we were short. We're 5'2". I want to say 2, but we're more like 5'1".
You are
I'd say 5'1".
the best little pocket rocket of all time. Okay, so we've painted the picture of Stefi Cohen.
Now let's paint the picture of Hayden. Brother.
Go.
Tell us about yourself, Hayden.
Hey, I'm a washed-up hockey player turned weightlifter turned powerlifter, and also the co-owner of Hybrid Performance Method with Stefi.
So you guys, I'm looking at you, and you guys are so young. I'm going to ask you, what are your ages, guys?
28.
We were born in the same year, but I like to say she's older than me. I'm still 27.
You know,
Cradle snatcher.
Like we talk a lot about successful people. We speak to a lot of successful people as well, and something that a lot of them have in common is how long they've been doing their craft for. A saying that we hear a lot of is it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Looking at you is like you guys are too young to have put 10 years into this. So this is what we want to get to the bottom of in this interview. How long have you guys been doing what you do? I know that the business has been going for 4 years. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
But that's not when you started in the industry. When did you guys start doing what you do? Stefi, I guess we'd best learn when you first started playing sports, because you're probably the best known for being a world champion powerlifter. So when did you start playing sports?
So, I started playing soccer when I was about 8, and my entire life revolved around becoming a professional soccer player. At age, I think 13 or 14, I got into the national team in Venezuela and played there for about 5 years. And then wanted to, move to the US and go to school while also continue pursuing the dream of becoming a professional athlete. For me, that didn't quite happen because I felt like there was just so much going on in my life moving to another country when I was 17 that I just felt like I couldn't juggle both. So ever since I quit playing soccer, I was kind of in this quest trying to look for what the next thing was for me as far as athletic goes, because I don't know, it was just part of my identity and I was not ready to give that up. So I tried a bunch of different sports and always stayed involved in, at that time I was in college, so I always was involved in some sort of like sports club, whether that was like the triathlon club or the CrossFit club or the running club, whatever that was, just kind of trying to find my place, trying to find my group, and ultimately trying to find a sport that not only I enjoyed, but I could get really good at, that I felt like I had the aptitude for. So there was a lot of kind of jumping around and trial and error and experiencing, both on the academic side and on the sports side to try to find my place, right? So ultimately, I ended up joining a CrossFit gym, and that was kind of my introduction to weightlifting.
How old were you then?
And, I was, what was I don't know, 20?
So that's
20.
Your first exposure to lifting weights?
Yeah, that was my first exposure.
Yeah.
And if it would have been up to me, I would have really quit school and just focused on personal training and training myself. But, I'm lucky in hindsight, looking back, that my mom kind of pushed for me to put my education first and not put all of the eggs in one basket. And, continue prioritizing school, because I think one of the misconceptions that we have about really successful people is that they're quote unquote risk takers, that they, that they get out of school, or how do you call it? Not get out of school. What do you call it when
drop out?
you
Like
don't
they drop out?
Drop out. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you drop out, they drop out of school, like Bill Gates, like they give you all of these examples when in reality, and specifically talking about Bill Gates, for example, he took a leap of absence, actually. So he asked for permission to take a year off of school to develop his business. And so, I think that's a really important lesson that I learned, which is, even though you know what you want to do, or you kind of have an idea of what you want to become or who you want to become, you still have to also kind of develop in other ways. So anyway, I stayed in school, ended up graduating with an exercise physiology degree or kinesiology degree, ended up going to grad school to get a doctorate in physical therapy. And kind of at the same time, so we're talking about business, like when we got into the industry, I feel like for me, it was always kind of like in parallel, like my academics with my own kind of athletic journey, and trying to find a way to insert myself into kind of the fitness hub or the fitness industry. But I never knew how to do it. And that's where Hayden came in. Hayden had a little bit more experience. He had a 3-year head start on building a business in fitness, and meeting him and just seeing what he had done and the way that he ran his business, and then having him kind of like as a mentor in some way was the perfect thing for me, because I honestly had no idea how to even get started at that point.
So you were already competing in powerlifting at this point, or there was a weightlifting background?
So after CrossFit, I trained for weightlifting for about 4 years, pretty seriously. I even tattooed the Olympic rings on my wrist. I was really, really committed.
That was a birthday present from me.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah. I was really committed to, whatever the outcome was, whether or not I ended up going to the Olympics or not, just to training every day and doing my best independently of what the outcome was.
So when did you go from weightlifting to powerlifting?
Yeah. And, training for Olympic weightlifting is so strenuous in your mind. Like, you need to be so focused with every single rep. You cannot half-ass a snatch or a clean and jerk. If your mind isn't there 100%, that bar is not coming off the floor.
I feel like we should also say, because I know a lot of powerlifters are going to get grumpy about the fact that you said that, but like powerlifting is obviously still very demanding mentally, but it's just a different kind of mentally demanding, right? Like, you can go into a powerlifting session feeling sluggish and feeling gross and like still grind out your reps and do squats, stuff like that, but it's just not the same with weightlifting, right? Yeah,
it just weightlifting requires a little bit more coordination and focus. And if it's not there, then there's nothing that you can do.
There's no grinding out a snatch.
Exactly. So when I started PT school, I had an awful schedule. I had to be in school for 8-9 hours a day. in order to train the way I needed to train to hopefully go to the Olympics, I had to do 2 sessions a day, one of which had to be with my coach, who had to like physically be there and see me so he can give me feedback and, you know, correct me and whatnot. And it was just impossible for me. So I got to a point where I was just not enjoying training at all. But not only was I not enjoying, I wasn't making progress, and I was just beating my head against the wall, not because I wasn't trying, but because I think I was trying too hard, you know, and it was just not in the cards for me at that point in my life.
And in all aspects too, like your diet was so dialed in, like you were so strict with what you ate. You wouldn't have a beer. I remember the first time I went to the gym with her ever. A bunch of people from the weightlifting team ordered donuts. Do you remember this? You know, and Stefi was, you know, she wanted to make like a good impression. We just started dating. She didn't want to seem like a real tight ass. So she's like, yeah, sure, I'll have a donut. She takes a bite, and then I catch her. Like I look away and I look back and I catch her. She's over in the garbage can spitting out the donut.
I'm not a donut fan either. I don't like a donut. Actually, you guys do like donuts. You took us to a donut place.
No, I don't.
Oh,
They're
you
disgusting.
don't? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
hey, but
Yeah.
at this point, who was your coach? Like, did you have a coach, or was it all just within the school?
So I had a coach. His name's Camilo Garcia. He was the coach for the national Cuban team. He moved here and he was, you know, just training a few people out of a gym.
So you had guidance from the very beginning. At what point did you start to take over your own coaching, like and doing your own programming?
I think a couple of years into powerlifting. Initially it was Hayden. And then I just kind of started gravitating towards what felt right. And then I got advice from a few people, including Bass.
How old were you when you went from weightlifting to powerlifting?
I had to have been in my, I don't know.
You're 23.
23. Yeah, 23.
23 because that's when we started dating.
Exactly.
So you did weightlifting for 3 years,
you know,
and then you went into powerlifting, and Hayden, you pushed her for her first powerlifting meet.
Well, even just at the beginning, there was no intention really to compete in powerlifting. It was just like, let's do something that'll help you with your strength while you can't really do weightlifting full time. But then we went into the gym the first time she ever did like a sumo deadlift, you know, and I was showing her this is like the basics of it. And, you know, like I'm not like built for sumo deadlift, so I look garbage when I'm doing it, you know. And then the first rep she ever does is like perfect. It looks like she's been doing it her whole life. And then I'm like, oh, well, let's go up like something kind of heavy and like see what you can do. And she pulled 3 plates, which in American numbers is 315. It's 143 kilos. Like her first time ever doing sumo deadlift. And then we're like, oh, you definitely need to start competing in this, you know. Like you're already better than 99% of people out there. So
at this point, what level of weightlifting were you at? So what was your best clean and jerk and snatch at this point when you changed over to powerlifting?
When I switched, what was it? I think I had a 90 kilo snatch. Yeah, 90 kilo snatch and a 110 kilo clean and jerk.
Damn,
and you
so
clean 120.
There's a good base level of strength when you came over to powerlifting.
So what are your best lifts with your powerlifting?
Now,
okay, so with powerlifting, I have a 230 kilo squat, a 112 kilo bench, and a 247 kilo deadlift.
Unbelievable.
But your bench, I feel like, is so underrepresented because you've also done 110 kilos for a triple.
Right.
But you've just never kind of like put it together on the platform.
and what did you say the single was? 115?
112 and a half.
Right.
That's
so take
insane.
2.5 kilos off and you can do 3 reps of it.
Yeah. I mean, you probably could have done a triple at 112.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't always add up like that. We all know that. Okay, so something else. These are great numbers with powerlifting. We're going to get to the bottom of that. I want to speak to you guys about your method with your training within your business. So you guys are obviously called the hybrid method. I want you guys to tell us what the hybrid method is.
So ultimately, the hybrid method initially began with combining Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, and functional bodybuilding. That's kind of the core program. Over the last few years, it has evolved, and now we have 17 different programs to choose from. But the essence of the hybrid, quote-unquote, hybrid method remains the same across all programs. So the theory here is that we believe that strength should be the backbone of every single strength and conditioning program that you ever do. So the first time when we realized this was when we started dissecting and just looking into the way that Olympic weightlifters train. And it's the perfect example in order to understand kind of where our head is at with the way that we program. So for Olympic weightlifters, the traditional program is you snatch and clean and jerk and pull every day. And they treat the snatch and clean and jerk as strength output movements, when in reality, they're skill movements. Once you have the skill down, you're not going to build strength through snatch and clean and jerk. You're going to build strength through deadlifting and squatting.
I like to use the example of like American football players or, a rugby player or a soccer player, where strength is something they work on, but the skill is something they practice and develop, right? So it's whether you're a football player or an Olympic weightlifter or a soccer player, baseball player, you need to do these requisite strength movements to have general physical preparedness for a sport, but the actual skill is not where you're gaining that strength. Football players aren't getting stronger from running headfirst into each other. They're getting stronger from the stuff they do, the strength movements they do in the gym, and then they practice those things.
Exactly. So the issue here becomes one of over-specificity, and almost, especially in barbell sports like Olympic weightlifting and even in powerlifting. And
it was so obvious, especially to us in America.
Yeah, and especially because we come from an Olympic weightlifting background, right? And it's what we were talking about the other day.
And both had non-American coaches.
Yeah, it's what we were talking about recently about how, for 4 years that I trained Olympic weightlifting, I don't think once I ever maxed out my deadlift or my squat. Maybe in 4 years, seriously, in 4 years, I think I maxed out my squat twice.
That is my favorite term you say.
The training blue balls. That's what I was being, Jesus, Dexter. I was being held back by my coach for 4 years.
Did you want to max out?
And why? I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know if I needed to. Did I want to? Yeah, sure, because I will always want to test myself. But I didn't know if, I was just listening to my coach. I'm a good athlete. But yeah, so we had these realization after both being competitive weightlifters and kind of studying how other weightlifters trained, and realized that the same concept applies across really any discipline. Where the priority should be building a really strong strength base and practicing your skills outside of that. And within that, there's a few other concepts that play an important role, which are general athleticism becomes a part of it. So I call it initially functional bodybuilding, but just ensuring that you're programming accordingly, not only for your sport, but also for health. So the way that I like to think about it is, in the absence of health, there is no strength. You can't try to get stronger if you're not fueling yourself accordingly, if you're not moving well, if you're not recovering well, if you're not managing fatigue, right? So I think if you focus too much on the goal, you'll lose sight of the big picture. And the big picture is that you need to stay in the game for a long period of time. So the entire kind of framing of thinking about programming changed from being overly specified and really kind of like dialed in with one goal to being able to incorporate all of the elements that play a role in performance, which is not only your skill, but it's also your strength, your mobility, your ability to recover, your cardiovascular health, etc.
Yeah, so that's a good word that you just mentioned, which I wanted to speak about, was cardiovascular health. So growing up in the strength and conditioning world, I've been in the industry for 17 years now, and growing up there was a lot of gurus out there that were very much suggesting that a lot of different exercises combined in one program makes it very difficult to get good at one thing. But then we look at someone like you who is a world champion in one thing, which is powerlifting, and practices so many different disciplines. What is your take on that? Before you talk about cardio, I want to ask that next. So it's like, I guess it's the discussion of CrossFit. CrossFit has developed a lot of popularity. over the years, and it's getting more and more accepted in the strength world. But when it first came out, a lot of people considered it like the best CrossFit athletes in the world are kind of okay at everything, but not really good at one thing. And when I look at the hybrid method, it's very, in my opinion, just from the outside, it takes on many of the principles of CrossFit is to be good at a lot of things. What is your take on that theory that I was brought up on? When you practice too many things, it's hard to get good at one, yet you come out here with multiple world records. What is your take on that?
So if you imagine kind of, let's imagine like a bunch of different bars on an x-axis that symbolize different characteristics of an athlete, right? So you have your mobility, your endurance, your cardiovascular health, your strength, whatever. As a CrossFitter, you're trying to even out all of those bars to just, be able to survive any sort of workout that comes your way.
You have to be like good at all of them, but not great at any one particular one.
Whereas the way that I think about training is obviously like you're going to have to, if you want to be a powerlifter, you have to do a lot more strength training than you would if you wanted to be a CrossFit athlete, right? It's a matter of like choosing which bar needs to go up, right? So in my opinion, or in our opinion, strength should always be kind of a little bit higher. And then the other variables, vary depending on what exactly your goal is. Do you want to be strong and also be able to run a 5K? So, I guess there's going to be some level of interference there because you're going to have to dial down your strength to pull up your endurance, right, to a certain degree. But
there's also a component of periodization, whereas where for powerlifters, you're trying to maximize one of those factors at a particular time in a competition to improve your performance. Whereas with CrossFitters, you're trying to bring up all of those to the same level and peak all of them at the same time.
Right.
So you speak really well actually about the periodization of all of that stuff. And it kind of leads into what Bass was going to say about cardio too.
Tell us.
Yeah. So, when you think about periodization, and I think the main concern that a lot of strength athletes have when it comes to introducing not only other movements or movement variability, but also cardiovascular training or cardio. It's obviously the concern that one will diminish the gains in the other, or the interference, it's called in scientific terms. And, the reality is obviously if you're trying to improve your strength and you're doing a peaking block, then you're going to have to over specialize. Of course, like I will never deny that. But what happens, so say that you do your peaking block for 4 months, right? What happens the other 8 months of the year? Like, what are you doing? Yeah, I get it. Like there's some months there, maybe you do more than one competition. So maybe 8 months of those 12 are taken with a peaking block, but you absolutely have to take some time off beating your body with heavy weights and attempt to, restore a certain level of human back into you. Because let's be real, when you're in your peak strength performance, or if you're a powerlifter, you're in terrible human shape. That's a reality. You can't go up a flight of...
I can vouch for that perfectly. I can't move right now. I was just training for a competition, and right now I'm as heavy as I've ever been. I'm as strong as I've ever been, and I'm as useless as I've ever been. You're right. Like walking, my back gets pumped. I'm puffed out.
Oh yeah, you got that nice powerlifter's waddle, huh?
Everyone's seen it. You guys have paid me out enough about it. But yeah, it's worse. It's worse than ever currently. And it's not an amazing feeling, but that's the things that we face to be good at one thing, forgetting about everything else. So let's just take me, for example, with cardiovascular health. My goal is to be as good as possible at powerlifting. And so anything like cardiovascular, a lot of the studies that are generally done on general population, never really done at athletes at the highest level, like yourself. So that's why I don't really care about the studies and what I hear so much when I get the opportunity to speak to someone like you who's actually doing it. And you say that you perform a lot of cardiovascular, you say you do so many different exercises. Let's just say you to get myself to peak? You know, as you said, you might be at 4 months out of the year, one competition's important and the rest of them, you know, may not be as important. So let's just say you got someone like myself who wants to peak for one great powerlifting competition. That's going to happen once in the year, obviously. For the rest of the year, do you think that someone at the highest level can introduce cardio and it not interfere with the strength gains and building muscle mass? What are your thoughts on that?
A 1,000%, because it's a matter of doing the right cardio, right? Not every cardio has the same effect on your body, right? It has to do with frequency. How many times in the week do you do it? How long are your sessions? What intensity are you performing at? What kind of cardio are you doing? So there's a lot of variables. It's not, I think when people think about cardio, they only think about running, but there's so many other ways to spike your heart rate and create positive training adaptations at the level of the heart. So,
and we've seen a lot of great athletes prove that too. Like one that I always love to use as an example is Ilya Ilin. I'm sure you guys are familiar with arguably the greatest weightlifter of all time.
No doubt.
After every Olympics, he takes off completely from any sort of weightlifting at all, 9 months.
Wow.
And all he does in that time is light running drills and cycling.
And look, this is how I think about it. Will introducing cardio and more movement variability make you a better powerlifter? The answer is likely no.
It's yes and no.
No, the answer is no, but it will make you a better, it'll make you a better athlete, which in turn will make you a better powerlifter. Mm-hmm. So if you can control the way that you're, yeah, exactly. There's the yes, but he interrupted me. So yeah, if in the off season you can improve your cardio and your muscle endurance, that means that during the season you'll be able to train harder, train longer, and recover faster, because those are the positive adaptations that come from doing cardio and doing higher volume workouts, right? Yep. You'll say that you're moving in different directions. So now you're jumping, maybe you're doing some sprinting, maybe you're doing, you add in some boxing or whatever. Now you have better proprioception. You have better awareness of the way that your body moves in space. You're literally, like, there's mechanoreceptors, proprioceptors on your joints that can sense speed and tension and dimensions in space that can literally help you lift better. So it's not a direct correlation, and I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, because a lot of people focus so much on the quote-unquote carryover or transfer of a particular movement to the movement they're trying to improve, that they just get stuck there and are unable to see the other ways in which some other form of training can benefit them. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to... Go ahead.
The take-home point here is, I guess, one of the biggest problems that I've faced in my industry with dealing with people is the association with the word cardio to running. My advice is always, if you like running, you should run, because you should really do what you enjoy doing. And if you want to compete in an event like a marathon, then you'd better run. But if you're using running for things like burning fat, or because you think it's the best way to develop heart health, then you're not entirely incorrect, because it does have benefits, but it's not necessarily the best way. And there's a lot of different exercises that you can, or forms of cardio that you can perform, that will have equal benefit on your heart to whatever it is that you think you're trying to achieve with cardio. So what are your favorite ways to train your heart?
So favorite's not the same as optimal. Mm-hmm. So if it was up to me, just my favorite ways would be just to play sports, right? Get into play some flag football, play some baseball, soccer, whatever. But I think that, I think the best ways to incorporate cardio when it comes to, especially or specifically to strength athletes, would be to pick exercises that will benefit you in some sort of way, whether that's for improving your core strength and stability, or improving your single leg stability, or improving your unilateral strength, whatever that is. So, I usually resort to exercises like lunges, or sled drags, sled pushes, yoke carries, kettlebell swings, Russian or American, suitcase carries, farmer carries, incorporate some strongman into it. Exercises that can clearly benefit you in your strength movements. But the difference here is that you do them at a higher volume at a lower weight and with less rest periods. So that's how you just get your heart rate up, right?
It's a
And that's it.
fine line. It's a fine line when we're, trying to develop ourselves. I look at you and just for the purpose of people that are listening, someone like you who has a goal to be the best in the world, what you just said, there is a difference between favorite and optimal. So for someone like you, you could say, this cardio exercise, it might be, you might enjoy it, but what's going to make you better at your sport is this. So you're probably going to choose what is optimal rather than what you prefer. Whereas, when we're coaching general population and the majority of the population in the world, I guess it's more about compliance. The best exercise is the one that you'll do. And so it's a bit of a take-home message that sometimes when we're looking at some of the highest level athletes, like you're a huge influence, and people would look at you and say, that's Stefi's favorite. But, I'd say without even, I know I do know you, but I don't think that I had to know you to understand that the exercises that you do are going to be contributing to your performance rather than what you enjoy doing most. So it's definitely... It's something that I encounter a lot with all of our general population audience, wondering, it's almost a debate, and I hate that it is a debate, but I love the idea of performing cardio with resistance, which is what you're doing. And that's actually a system that we have in place with all of our programs, actually. So we don't actually call it cardio, but from the way that you're describing it, we are definitely training our heart with a lot of our training programs. Not when I say we, I'm not referring to me. I am unfit, but I love to learn from people, and speaking to you guys that someone who's actually done it gives me a lot of confidence to say, far away from competition, I can do different exercises, and it's going to allow me to achieve my end goal a lot better. But it's great to get your point of view on that one. So thanks for that.
Can I add something there?
For sure.
Something that I wanted to mention was about how people think about periodization. We think about periodization as ways to manipulate load, volume, intensity, and frequency alone. And again, that is short-sighted, because although those are the most important variables or parameters when it comes to creating a training plan with the goal of making someone stronger, it leaves out the longevity aspect of training. And so I think we need to have a conversation, or people need to have a conversation, a deeper conversation about things that you need to do in your yearly calendar to improve your health. Right. So it's not only about periodizing load, frequency, and intensity. It's also about, okay, when in my competition year, when my calendar, am I going to be adding things that benefit my health? Right. Like, when am I going to add cardio or conditioning? When am I going to add mobility? When am I going to add leisure sporting? Like, when am I going to add things that I enjoy doing and that I'm not doing to beat my body up, And look, this is something that I learned the hard way. I learned this. I'm an all-in kind of person. And I've been training so hard for the last 9 years, so focused on one goal, thinking that I'm invincible. And whenever anyone would tell me, you'll eventually be paying for it, I always thought that it will never happen to me, kind of thing. Right. And I think I've reached a point where all of that, really high intensity training with no breaks finally caught up to me. Not in any serious way, but you know how it is. Like, you start getting like a few nagging aches and pains that used to go away on their own. Now they're not, or they're lingering. And, I'm at a point where I finally understand that the key to unleashing your ultimate level of performance lies in the balance of focusing on your goals and being nice and caring towards your body. So, that's something that I'm doing right now, is putting aside or putting lifting heavy in the passenger seat and just focusing on doing things that make me feel good,
Like what?
Yeah, powerlifting, the farther you get in the sport, it becomes more and more a game of how little you can do and still get a positive result, right? Because that's ultimately what leads to you being able to recover better and not getting injured.
We had this conversation,
and it's like it's tough because like society in general, and then especially within our sport, really glorifies like the grind and working hard and being the hardest worker in the room and equates that to being successful. And sometimes it's like the exact opposite. It's really how well are you able to hold yourself back and not push too hard, in order to make progress.
It is something that we were talking about last night. It's, minimum effective dose versus maximum recoverable volume. And I've always been on the side of minimum effective dose. And by the sounds of it, that's where you guys are coming from as well. And, there's so many different trains of thought out there. And then when you compare the two models, I think that a lot of it's, again, misinterpretation. So people think that they're performing the minimum effective dose, but then I look at what they're doing and it's twice the amount of volume to what I'm doing, for example. So a lot of it does come down to interpretation of the terminology. And I think this is where science gets confused. And we look at the industry leaders and the authorities of the industry, like you guys, and we imitate what they're doing and then we translate it one way. So minimum effective dose is definitely, my point of view with this. With cardiovascular, how would you, include this type of training, cardiovascular training, with a powerlifter, for example, who needs to peak at one time of the year? Would you be training your cardiovascular health all the way through to the competition? How would you periodize it? How would you periodize it for yourself?
Yeah, so I think anything outside of that 4-month window is fair game. I'm doing pretty much anything that I want. That with obviously keeping in mind what my goal is, right? Like I'm not just fucking off and not doing squat, bench, deadlift. I'm keeping that in mind. But anything that falls outside of those 4 months is fair game, and then it's slowly kind of like I kind of like think about it as a pyramid, where outside of those 4 months, I'm doing a lot of different things, a lot of different movements. I'm focusing on a lot of different things. And as the competition comes closer, I start like removing things slowly, removing different movements, removing cardio. If I was doing four conditioning sessions a week, then it goes to 3, to 2, to 1, eventually to 0. And same thing for movement variability, right? Like I think at the beginning of those 4 months, I'm still doing all sorts of things, farmer carries, suitcase carries, kettlebell swings, whatever it is that I'm doing. And as it gets closer, 2 months or 1 month in, I'm only doing squat, bench, and deadlift.
It sounds very similar to the approach that I take as well. So it's great to hear your perspective on that.
Okay, let's talk. So you said that you have 17 programs with hybrid. Right. What does the hybrid athlete expect getting on one of your programs? So are they? So
yeah, we are. We like to call ourselves sort of like the one-stop shop for all things fitness. So and within that we have 17 different programs. We have anything that's outside of our area of expertise. We hire a coach to handle that program. So what comes with that is we're sort of also in the middle between having a personalized program and a templated program, because when you sign up for a program, you get the standard program that everybody gets, but because you get that interaction with the coach, we have the ability to help adjust programs as needed. If you have questions about literally anything to do with your training, we have coaches to answer that. If you're peaking for a meet, we'll help align a program so that your mock meet falls on the same day as your competition day, all those sort of things. But I think the real value in what we offer beyond the program is just the community. We have around 10,000 people on the hybrid platform, and
that's huge.
Within that,
can you tell who's your main clientele? Is it mainly women, men?
Mostly men. We're about 70% men, 30% women.
A lot of people preparing for competition, like powerlifters or general population.
We have a little bit of everybody, but I think the majority of people that we get are people who may or may not compete, but they come from a competitive background of some sort. They've played sports in the past, or
they're intermediate level lifters.
Or they're intermediate level lifters who want to take their training seriously, who want guidance, and want also flexibility in their training, and maybe also want to have the option to try other variations of training, throughout the year. Because I think especially like a large part of our demographic is CrossFit athletes or people who have access to a CrossFit gym because it has all the things they need for training. And sometimes a place like an LA Fitness or a Good Life Fitness, like one of those, global gyms, it might not have the stuff they need.
Is there a difference between how you train your men and your women?
I think that in general, women can generally handle more volume than men, and I think that's probably the biggest difference. But in general, we try to not make a huge distinction between the way we train men and women. I think that we allow people the ability to self-regulate within the programs, and they sort of find their own way based on that. And with our additional guidance, we're able to direct people based on their individual needs, whether they be male or female.
Yeah, as far as, physical or physiological capabilities when comparing men to women, like Hayden said, maybe the biggest one is women's ability to recover faster from higher volume and higher intensity. Just their ability to recover from training is probably a little bit better, but maybe that has to do with the fact that they're handling lower absolute training loads. I don't know. But outside of that, where females are perfectly capable of handling the same type of training as guys. I think the main thing to take into consideration when training females is exercise selection. What are the goals of the person that you're training? I think usually girls want to grow bigger legs and bigger butts and don't want their upper bodies to get too big or their torsos to get too thick, And I think that's where exercise selection comes into play.
And program selection. So we have programs to cater to things like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly like us with our training methods. Bas could train the way we trained. It does come down to exercise selection. We do focus more on lower body movements, whereas he includes bench press. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, we tried to, like, originally with a lot of our programs, they came from the way that I trained a professional boxer, which was a male, and he was the Australian middleweight champion. And after his preparation for his boxing fight, he finally took his shirt off, got in the ring, and he had veins popping out. His body was amazing. And I didn't realize this because this guy was just cutting weight. He had to get from 80 kilograms to 70 kilograms. And in my opinion, with his T-shirt on, he was just getting skinnier and skinnier. So it's like, all right, whatever. He's a fit guy. That's what happens. And then when he took his shirt off, like, this guy was jacked. And the girls actually saw this. And Dinny came to me and she said, I want to train like that guy.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing. So the first program that we got Dinny on was a male's boxing program leading up to a fight. And the results from that were freaking amazing. Like, we posted photos of the girls continually post photos of their physiques on social media, and all the boys are doing what they do over them. You guys know how it goes. But then, interestingly, that's the program. That's what an entire female model of Base Body Baits programming is based on. It's a male's boxing plan.
Based on a combination of the strength and circuit
style
training.
2 days of strength and 2 days of circuit, which you guys are calling cardio. So we're doing like cardio with weights, with resistance training. But then it does come down to the feedback that we get from a lot of our women is exactly that. From the aesthetic side of it, we want bigger butts, we want bigger legs, we want smaller trunk, we want smaller torso. And then we have to factor it like that. So it does sound like you guys are doing a very similar approach to what we're doing. So we love your approach with that. That's
Definitely.
excellent. But then we've got someone like you, Stefi, who's going to be competing. I'm certain that there's, like, if you're at the top of the field, there's definitely no other athletes like yourself that follows the hybrid method besides yourself. So how would you train yourself at the highest level? I think there's always going to be a difference with how we train general population and intermediate lifters to how we train the highest level athletes. Let's compare yourself to another high level male athlete that's got the same goal, which would be to achieve world records in powerlifting. Would there be a difference in your approach between training two athletes of different genders?
At the same level. That's the question, right?
So could I train with you in the gym and do the same program as you and achieve the same progression?
Maybe not at his current stage, but if you look at somebody like Gerald, Teeny and Tough, that's a guy who does tons of other types of stuff,
Yeah, I think.
But he's conditioned for it.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you're not prepared to train how I train. Yeah. Can I train you? Can I get you to a point where you can train how I train? Yeah, absolutely. But it would have to be programmed intelligently and kind of
You have to
ramping things up.
You have to take a few steps back before you get to
like I can tell you one guy like he was staying tiny and tough, Gerald. He could train with me. He's super conditioned. He's been doing boxing for the last 2 years. He does a ton of circuit training, running, whatever. Like
acrobatics.
He's
world record holder as well.
Right. I think he could train with me.
He competed all the way from 148 to 181. I'm not sure where all his records are at,
but then again, see, it has to do with preparedness, but also with the amount of weight that you're handling, right? Because this is something that I always talk about. We're all made of the same skin, bones, tendons, ligaments, right? Muscles, equally, male and female. But you're handling twice as much as I am in terms of intensity, right? So realistically, will you be able to recover from the same squat session as me in addition to doing all the other crazy stuff that I do? I don't know. Probably not, independently of how fit you are for it. I just think that the beating of the body is way too much when it comes to someone bigger who's handling a larger amount of absolute load. Someone like Dan Bell, I don't know. I don't think it matters how conditioned he is. I don't think during a peaking phase, I don't think that he could do all the other stuff that I do. I think he really does need to just over specialize, really figure out what the minimum effective dose is for him and do nothing else outside of that during those 4 months.
And we actually account for that in our programs that have a lot of specificity. So if you do follow a program like hybrid powerlifting, we're not necessarily programming in cardio circuits or metabolic conditioning. Those are things that athletes would use the Facebook group to reach out and ask for guidance on, and we give that to them on an individual basis. Whereas a general fitness program like Hybrid 101, that would be something where we would include all of those things.
I totally agree with all that, and I love everything that you're saying. A lot of the things that I've got a lot of theories with how I train people, and something that I talk about is load is king, and a lot of people have their interpretations and misinterpretations of that. And basically, the way that I define that is the exercise that allows you to lift the heaviest loads is going to give you the best results, also demands the most respect in things like recovery between sets and recovery between sessions. And this is regardless of gender. So I would say if there's a 100 kilo girl that's squatting 300 kilograms with me, she needs the exact amount of recovery as I do because we're lifting the same loads, and that's regardless of the gender. So it sounds very much like we are definitely on the same page with that.
Can we just talk a little bit about women in strength sports? You've obviously achieved multiple world records.
I've always participated. For some reason, I've always wanted to participate in sports that are male dominated. I don't know if it's part of, me being rebellious, or I don't know how the way that my brain's wired. I always kind of want to go against the grain.
I think there's no denying it comes down to your personality with this. There's not many women that I know that have the same drive to kick another dude's ass, for example. But I know that about you. So I think it's really important. I know how many people look up to you, and it's something that I'm always trying to answer is like, do you do what the best in the world are doing? What are the consequences? So it's great for our audience to hear your perspective on this. We love your perspective. Keep going.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just think that the limitations that you perceive are literally set by yourself. Not in any single point in my life have I ever felt like being a female was a barrier of entry for an industry, or a barrier of entry for a sport, a barrier of entry for a group of friends. I never felt that way. And I don't know if it stems from just being overly confident, or I don't think so, because I wasn't overly confident when I was younger. But I don't know. I just honestly never perceived gender.
You're just a shit disturber.
Yeah, I just never perceived gender as a barrier or a limiting factor. So when it comes to entering powerlifting, lifting weights and muscles in the fitness industry, I think that I didn't come into it with a big mouth, with a loud mouth. I came into it just waiting for my actions to speak loud, and they did. Right? And I remember even when I was a soccer player, I remember thinking something like, and I haven't talked to this about this with you, but it was something like, I just wanted to be recognized or be known for being the best soccer player based on my abilities on the field. And I feel like I've taken that approach to every single other aspect in my life, including powerlifter. You know, I don't need to have a big mouth or a loud mouth on social media and talk shit and like be aggressive. I'm just going to go on the platform and I'm going to do what I do best. And that's how people are going to recognize me and respect me. So, you know, I did that for several years. I showed up and I performed, and that's what kind of got me recognition. And then after that, I started speaking, you know, my thoughts, my beliefs and whatnot. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So from the beginning, just to paint a bit of a picture. So were your training partners men? Were they women? Like
always men.
You've always been a man's woman.
Yeah, always men.
And we've spoken about this before. You actually train pretty much only men.
Yes,
like as an actual coach. So when you speak about training some of the biggest and strongest guys in the gym, how did that come about?
You know, you've watched some of us bang our head against the wall, figuratively, and maybe also literally, for like a long enough period of time where you've just been like, what are you idiots doing? Like, let me help you. And then everyone's like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, can we talk about your mindset?
Yes, I had the pleasure of being at the Hybrid Showdown.
Yeah, you were there.
And I got to witness all of this, and I got to watch you perform. And literally, just before you were about to go break this world record, we went out the back, we're sitting in the office, talking shit about nothing. What was going through your mind? Like, what goes through your head before you get on the stage?
Nothing.
You're so cool, calm, and
Nothing.
collected. It actually blew my mind just watching you before you got up there and broke this world record.
Yeah, I think that stems from experience. You know, that the more experience you have going on a platform and performing for a sport, the more calm you're able to, or the more you have a handle on your nerves.
Do you get nervous?
I do,
You
but
do.
it's a positive thing for me. I think, you know, I've been in a few meets where I haven't felt nervous, and that's more worrisome to me.
Yeah, right.
If you're not nervous, you're not alive. Like, I don't even feel like I'm there. I'm alive, you know? Nerves mean that you care,
Yeah.
and that you're alive. You're having some sort of feeling, right? So, no, you know, I am nervous, but at the same time, I'm confident. So it's a positive nerve kind of thing.
That approach that Dinny was talking about, that you guys are talking about, you know, most likely things that are unrelated to the sport. Is that a tactic to calm your nerves, or is that just literally because that's just what's going through your mind, and then you know how to switch it on and flick that switch when you need to? Is that a tactic?
I think that was Denny being a bad influence.
Probably.
Mate, I was trying to calm your nerves. I was trying to get you to think about other things. But
also,
that was
for that meet, you were cutting so much weight that I think the most intense part of that whole competition was just making weight.
Yeah.
And then after you made weight, like, the records were so far below what you are capable of that it was like she broke all the records with her
tell
openers.
us the numbers.
So
You went in at what weight,
she didn't have to do
and
that
what did you pull?
Right. So I went in at 51, I think.
like 51
Oh,
something.
50 point. Yeah, I think 50.8 or 51.
You were under, but
Kilos,
Yeah,
yes.
just
so you were like 113 point something pounds
right.
Tiny.
for American records.
Yeah. And I broke the world records with the openers.
What was the numbers?
So I think that the openers, what was it, like 180?
No,
184 squat.
but you broke it by more. I think you did like 190 something.
No, but the opener.
Your opener.
Was
You
190?
ended up doing a 202 and a half was your second attempt squat, which broke it by another. So the record was 190, and then you broke it at 192 and a half on your opener. Your second one, you went up 10 kilos, you did 202 and a half, so you pushed the record up way higher. And then you missed your third, but
No, I didn't take a third.
oh, okay, you're right.
At
Skipped your third.
51 kilos. That is teeny, teeny, tiny. I remember you walked in, I put my hands around your waist, and it was like this, like my fingers touched.
And you know the craziest thing that I think most people don't know about that meet is that Steph wasn't really training either.
No,
it's not like she
you
was
weren't even gonna go in for
training
it, were you?
super hard.
No.
Yeah, she was like, the records are this. I think that, you know, not like, even if I'm not training, I'll be able to hit at least this. So you like dialed it in 2 weeks out. You like started actually like lifting.
I think I asked
I
you
had
like a
2
week.
squat sessions.
I asked you like a week out, and you're like, "Nah, I'm not competing." And then literally 7 days before the comp, you're like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'm going to do it." And I was like, "What?" Insane.
Yeah, so I think that played a role in me not being that nervous. But I think when the stakes, I think when the stakes are higher and I have to literally pull a weight out of my ass, and I'm a lot more nervous.
I think you might have been one of the most nervous I've seen. You might have been before Pro Raw because you went up a weight class. The record was lower than in your regular weight class, so you had all this pressure to like not underperform. But I think that was a good test for you because it was like it was the ultimate test of like you shouldn't fail and all the pressure's on you, and you still like
that was when we met you.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, reminiscing.
I think, do you think that because it was in your gym as well, you felt more comfortable? And
not too.
You were like, you're walking around, you're like, I'm a boss ass bitch. That was it. Like literally.
Yeah. It just felt like a max out session.
Yeah, right. That's how I perceived it.
So you've obviously achieved so much in your sport and in business. Can you share with our audience some of your top tips for achieving greatness? Because you are so great.
I would say that focusing on creating systems and processes over long periods of time and not overly focusing on one specific goal, because that kind of pigeonholes you to that one goal and doesn't allow you to see like all the other opportunities that might come your way. So, for me, it's been, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life professionally, athletically. I had no idea. All that I knew was this like very flimsy goal of 1, wanting to be a professional athlete, and 2, wanting to be a millionaire. Those were my 2 goals. How I was going to achieve them or what I was going to do, I had no idea. And the only thing that I kind of had full control over was the things that I did daily in my life. So for me, it was a lot of focus on personal development. I didn't even own a TV until I met Hayden. So 100% of my time was spent trying to develop the skills that I thought I was going to need in the future. Right. And that included culture, travel, reading a ton of books, networking, meeting people, having mentors, all of these different things with, having that goal kind of like in the distance, but just focusing every day on the things that I could do to improve my own self. So if there's just one goal or one piece of advice that I could give anyone would be to stay consistent with the way that you're developing yourself, and don't be too strict with the goal. Just focus on creating the habits and the systems that you need to become better, a little bit better every day.
Can you guys just, I know you guys have just launched your Mind Muscle project.
So that was something that we're offering to all of our current members, and also any new members who signed up before May 1st. And basically all that is, we're calling it the 30 Days of Mental Muscle Challenge. And the challenge is that you actually participate in as much of what we provide you as possible. And what we're providing to members is every day we're sending a new email to everyone's inbox. And it's going to be on a wide variety of topics, all different areas of self-improvement, whether it be fitness or business or just self-development, habit building, all of that good stuff. And it's a collaborative effort from the whole hybrid team. So there's a lot of bits in there from Stefi. There's some from me. There's some from Ian Kaplan, some of our nutrition coaches. And we're just trying to provide people, with some self-development tools in all different areas in a time where it's very easy to just be complacent because, half or the majority of the world's stuck inside their own houses right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it sounds great what you're doing with that. So just to finish off, do you guys just want to give us a little rundown of what's happening for the future of hybrid, Stefi and Hayden? What have you guys got coming up?
Yeah. So, we're super pumped right now about the Hybrid Fantasy Factory. Even last time we talked to you guys, we talked to you a little bit about it, but it's really moving now. We've scrapped some of the old stuff that we were going to do in it.
So do you just explain to us what that is again?
Yeah. So the Fantasy Factory.
We're pretty much the Google of fitness.
Yeah.
You understand me?
Yeah.
Cool. So
Basketball
The
courts,
Fantasy
ping
Factory is
pong,
going to be
drum
well,
kits.
we'll get to that. So the Fantasy Factory is sort of going to be a place for us and all of our staff to go, a place that they can be excited about to, create content for us, create content for themselves, hang out, a place for team building, a place for physical recovery, just an awesome place where you can have all sorts of fun. So what we're going to have in there. No,
it's for their team.
Exclusive.
No, doors are closed.
Hybrid stuff only.
Yeah, and it's also part of it will also be our print shop and an apparel warehouse.
Podcast.
No, well, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna have, if we can give you like a sort of like a virtual walkthrough of it, we're going to have a lounge area where people can hang out. A spot if there's UFC fights on, people can go and watch. Do all that cool stuff. We originally wanted to have a basketball court and pool table, like a little hangout area, but Stefi just went down this rabbit hole of being obsessed with MMA, and she's kind of dragging me along with her.
You're getting a ring.
Yeah, so we're going to put a ring in there and some other, fight type stuff. We're going to have our offices. We're going to have
Is it a ring or a
co-working.
cage?
A cage, sorry.
So we're going to do one wall that's a cage, one that's a padded wall, and then two that are the ropes.
So it's
fun.
like a
So
square room.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have like a little bit of everything, so you can practice all the different stuff.
Very cool.
And we have our offices. We have sort of like a co-working space for everyone that works for us. So there'll be 8 different sections set up for our team leads and for other people who just want to come work.
A kitchen, 2 bathrooms, sauna, cold plunge, and outdoor.
You guys,
Plus the YouTube studio, podcast studio.
can I just say that your
I'm most
podcast,
excited.
let's just quickly mention, give your podcast, Hybrid Unlimited, a little shout out. One of my favorite podcasts of all time. Love listening to you guys. And you're smashing out so many. You put us to shame. You're like one every week, maybe even more.
2 now.
Yes,
2 now.
so
Really?
good. Hybrid Unlimited, check it out, guys. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Sorry,
you.
continue. The YouTube.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, YouTube studio, podcast studio.
When will
I'm
that be
most
finished?
excited about the podcast studio. It was 5 months, they said, before all the quarantine stuff. We've been doing all the things that we can. So like ordering the furniture and like trying to get all the permits.
It is so
seen by the
sick.
city.
I got to see this, and it's Steffi's big head painted a big mural on the front of the building.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome.
Sick.
We did the outside, yeah. So that was pretty cool because it's kind of like a little landmark thing now. I love when people like walk by it who don't even know that that's what it is, and they'll see Steffi's head, and we'll get tagged in photos and
It's
stuff.
so cool.
It's
Well,
kind of fun.
That
we
is
were
fun.
actually meant to be in Miami right now for World's Strongest Man. It was
Yes.
it was going to be in I think 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and
Oh
my
my
birthday. It's real sad.
It's postponed to the end. It's postponed to the end.
So
of
we
the year.
won't be coming till the end of the year
I'm
now.
not even sure that we're going to be coming to the
Yeah,
World's Strongest Man
we
this
don't-
time. The athlete that we coach for that event's not going to be competing in it, unfortunately. But we still definitely, I'd say that's our next destination once these quarantine
Restrictions have been lifted.
airport rules
Yeah.
are changing, and we're going to be allowed to travel from country to country. I'd say that Florida is going to be first on our list to
For
come as
sure.
a family. So hopefully your new location is going to be finished and we get to hang out. Are we invited to your new location?
We're gonna sleep
course.
there. We're gonna put a bed in there. Can you have a little bed for us?
I think we're gonna have a pull-out couch actually.
Yeah, we have. It's just.
I'm probably
like a fun house.
I'm
I gotta
probably
sleep
gonna
there.
want to sleep there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Steph, I saw
100%.
you sleeping
On
in the
your
office
couch.
all the time. Whenever I couldn't find you, you're asleep on the couch in there.
So much fun. Oh, we can't wait to see it.
Where can people find you guys if they want to look for you?
You can find me at Stefi Cohen on pretty much every platform.
Easy.
Yeah, I'm at Hayden.Bowe on Instagram, and then for all things hybrid related, whether you want to find the podcast or apparel, the gym, all that stuff, if you just go to the main hybrid Instagram at Hybrid Performance Method, it's all linked there. You can find everything. And our website is hybridperformancemethod.com. So
Love it,
check it
guys.
out.
Thank you so much for joining us.
It was great having you guys on, and we can't wait to speak to you guys soon.
Pleasure.
Awesome. Talk
Thank
soon,
you
guys.
guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.